Hello everybody and welcome to our VE Day Assembly here from St Ivo Academy. If we were in somewhat more normal circumstances, I would have appeared in Assembly at the end of last week and this week to talk to you all about VE Day and what it means. I can't do that in the current climate, so instead I hope that you watch this and you get a sense of the message that we would have delivered to you, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you all back in school soon. So, VE Day. You might have heard of VE Day 75. VE Day stands for Victory in Europe. So on the 8th of May 1945, World War II ended in Europe. It's important to remember that Britain had not finished the war. In actual fact, the war in Asia carried on. But on the morning of the 8th of May, the British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, made an address to the British people over radio that Germany had been defeated and Britain and her allies were victorious. And of course, for a population that had suffered in 6 years of war, that was a very, very welcome message indeed. Just a little reminder then for those of you Year 9 and above who've done World War II, for those the younger ones amongst us might not have even covered it yet. But in 1939, Britain joined World War II when Hitler invaded Poland. And over the ensuing year and a half, Hitler and Nazi Germany were phenomenally successful in conquering many countries across Europe. On the map, you can see that every country coloured in red is either an ally or has been taken over or occupied by Nazi Germany. So by the end of 1940, you can see from the map that certainly within Europe, Britain really did largely stand alone against Nazi Germany. The situation or the experience of World War II for the whole population of Britain was one of fear and deprivation, uncertainty. And you can see that from some of the photographs that I've put here on the slide. So in the top photograph, we can see 3 children sitting outside the bombed out remains of their house. And that, of course, is a result of the Blitz, the bombing campaign launched by Nazi Germany against Britain from the autumn of 1940. Every city across Britain, so Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, all hit, suffered with bombing raids. And bombing is indiscriminate. It doesn't matter how young or how old you are, you can be affected by that. Underneath, we see the queues, perhaps reminiscent of the supermarket queues today, because rationing was introduced. The supply of food was limited to ensure that there was enough to go around in the wartime economy. And again, everybody in Britain was affected by that. So shortages, fear, evacuation of children into the countryside away from the cities, leaving their parents and loved ones behind. These were all difficulties that were faced by the British population from 1939 to 1945. So you can imagine the jubilation and the hope that people felt when finally, on the 8th of May 1945, the Prime Minister announced that the war in Europe was over, and it seemed likely that a total victory would not be far behind. So as we can see here, people dancing and partying in the streets to celebrate the wonderful news. Young people out with a renewed sense of freedom. We've got crowds waving for the cameras, united in joy. And of course, we've got the greatest, the royal family shown here. And you might recognise the young lady on the far left of this shot is, of course, the Princess Elizabeth, who is now our Queen. And she's standing with her family, her mother and father, her sister, the Princess Margaret, and in the middle there, the Prime Minister himself, Winston Churchill, to greet the crowds in London on this day. So, before the coronavirus hit, many villages, towns, cities and organisations all over the country had planned huge celebrations to mark the 75th anniversary of VE Day. And now, of course, with the situation as it is, those celebrations that were planned cannot go ahead. However, perhaps we can still mark the day in some way. So the History Department have set up a competition. If you log on to our Schoology page, you'll see it there straight away. And we've got a list of activities that you might want to do from writing a poem or doing some research and making a quiz, down to organising a party, following social distancing rules, of course. So lots of things that you can do. Send your entry to your history teacher. We would love to see what you've done to mark this special occasion. And we'll share those entries as well on social media so that as a community, we can see what we've done collectively. So what lessons do we have for today? VE Day, 1945, marked 6 years of war, deprivation, fear, worry. And so that sense of hope that must have come on this day, the 8th of May, must have been really quite something. VE Day 2020 comes at the end of about 6 weeks of lockdown. Life has changed for us in ways that we couldn't even have imagined only a couple of months ago. But maybe we can still take that sense of hope, that sense of resilience, and mark VE Day in 2020 in a way that feels right for us and relevant for us. Can we draw upon that resilience and that hope that the population displayed in 1945? So let's take a moment. Let's remember those who not only suffered in war, but also those who in today's crisis continue to suffer. And finally, let's thank those, not only those who fought for us, like brave Captain Tom, who has been, of course, in the media a lot over the last few weeks, but also those working in the NHS to protect the population in today's crisis. We give them thanks, and I'll leave you with a message from Dame Vera Lynn.